definite climate risk, and we are going to focus today more on how we move towards from right now the reaction to the fires towards planning for fire and building stronger systems around science, governance, planning, a lot more planning and finance. So that's, and the communities, integration of the communities as well. Very quickly on how the session flows today, we are going to start with a brief welcome remark by Hisham Mundal, Chief Advisor, India Environmental Defense Fund. Then we will have a short context setting slide walkthrough, which is grounded on economics and ecology by Keystone Foundation. We will then go towards a fireside, a series of very small fireside chats, which will be spanning across global development, science, community practices, state experiences, and at the end, finance as an instrument, solution, as an instrument to solution. So with that, and we are going to take questions at the end, that's what we plan to. So please keep your reflections and questions noted. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Hisham to welcome the audience.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for coming. I have a few framing comments just to set context. Wildfires are increasing across South Asia as they are across the world. And they are no longer isolated forest incidents. I don't know if you read about the Canadian wildfires recently. Just the emissions of the Canadian wildfires alone, just the emissions would have made them the third biggest emitter in the world. That's how big we're talking about it. They affect livelihoods, they affect biodiversity, they affect air quality and public health, they affect our climate goals. In short, wildfire is no longer just a forest management issue, it is as much a climate and development imperative. In India, we're already seeing underlying drivers intensity. There's longer dry periods, there's rising temperatures, there's changing land use, there's a spread of invasive species, and there is increasing human pressures on landscapes. Nearly a third of our forests are fire prone. That is allowed, okay? And yet our systems are still largely designed to respond after a fire starts. Many governments are investing, and we were in Chennai and we saw a really impressive control center, and I'm sure it's there in Maharashtra and in other states. But the challenge is that most systems are still largely designed to respond after a fire starts. We mobilize once the flames are visible, we suppress once the damage is done. We cannot be addressing wildfires in the 21st century with a 20th century response system. So the real question before us today is not whether fires will occur or who started them. They will occur, and it is not for us to sit on judgment about who started it or why. The question that we have to answer is, how do we become more predictive and more prepared rather than simply more reactive? And that shift requires a number of things to come together. The first is it requires more predictive sciences and systems. It requires better science and technology on both the prediction as well as the restoration side. A third angle to keep in mind is communities have been managing fires for tens of thousands of years. However, the harsh truth is that community knowledge rarely talks easily to government policy. So how can we serve as that bridge? And to do all of this, you need finance, including restoration and not just post-fire suppression. And that's been the thinking behind EDF's wildfire resilience work in India. We have a critical moment now to move early and build the systems that are both science-based and community-rooted. We have a collaboration that you'll hear more about with Keystone Foundation. I say this all the time, they are my favorite NGO in the country. Any other NGOs out there? I love you guys too, but hey, first love. Together, we're working to link risk modeling and satellite intelligence community fire knowledge with ecological restoration and strengthening institutions. The aim in all of this is to pilot, learn, and build a model in TN on wildfire resilience that is suited to Indian landscapes that can then move to other parts of the country and hopefully the world. It's easy to say community, and then typically as an NGO you say, I have a project design and this is the elements of it, and we're going to start in exactly this way and follow step 1, 2, 3. We're trying to do things slightly different this time. What we did was, let's first go and understand from the community what they're doing, how they're looking at it, what they've been doing before, what are their concerns. And to present that, Dr. Prahlad, who's an economist, and Dr. Manish, who's a socio-ecologist from Keystone Foundation, will provide some of this context. It also helps that Manish can come up and explain what is social ecology, because he's explained it to me a couple of times and I struggle. But when you hear what he says, it'll become all clear. Manish Prahlad. Oh, sorry, I was supposed to also mention that the PCCF of Maharashtra has joined us, and thank you so much, sir, for coming, and we'll hear government perspectives from you shortly.
Thank you, Hisham. Good morning, everybody. My name is Prahlad Burli. I'm a consultant with the Keystone Foundation. So today, we are at a unique situation where I can say the word fire in a closed room, and people are not going to scatter. They're going to sit up and look at what we're going to talk about. So that's the intention, to make you sit up and take notice of the incidents and impacts of fire in the Indian landscape. So like Hisham was mentioning, there are a lot of factors that go behind the incidence of fire. Some of them are climate-driven, some of them are human-driven, some of them are ecosystem change-driven, but together they influence the occurrence of fires across the Indian landscape. The quantity of vegetation that can serve as a fuel, the dry spells that we experience, which are elongated, lack of moisture, all result in where fires might occur and how they might spread. So, like we've noticed in some of the data that we've looked at from the incidence of forest fires in India, these set of figures shows a trend of large forest fires across the Indian landscape between 2023 and the middle of 2025. While there's some year-on-year variation, what you can see is that the central part of the country with Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh are regions that experience fires year after year, but you also have incidents of forest fires in the northeast, together which are referred to as the fire belt in India. This is a recent report called the Status of Wildfires 2024-25. What it tries to highlight is India is one of those regions, among others, which has a high exposure, both in terms of people exposed to the risk of forest fire and also assets exposed to forest fire, right? The report states that about 15 million people and over $44 billion in assets are at risk of exposure to forest fire. What we can be relatively confident about is the estimates for losses are there but vary widely across different studies. And for the most part, you can be confident to say that many of these data that are cited in the literature tend to be underestimates of the impact of fire. The other thing that we can say with a lot of confidence is that the losses that accrue because of forest fires are very context specific. And so there is a need for having methodological harmonization and quantification of these losses in the Indian context. A recent paper looking at the loss of forest ecosystem goods in Uttarakhand showed that the per hectare losses can range anything between 9,500 rupees to the hectare to over 3.5 lakh rupees to the hectare. So it's important to do more such studies to understand what this context of damage can be. And from the global context, you can see that the budgets that are allocated to forest fire management are kind of skewed towards response and not towards planning. And that's something that Hisham was also mentioning, that that paradigm needs to shift. And we need to make a case which has been observed in several regions that there is a benefit, or the benefit cost ratios are pretty high when you're thinking about management planning in the forest context. So I'll stop with that, and I'll invite my colleague, Dr. Manish Chandi, to talk about our experiences from the field before he sets the stage for the panel as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Prahlad, and thank you all. I'm Manish Chandi, and like Prahlad told you, he showed you 3 figures of the map of India from 2023 till 25. Think back to about 200 years ago, when India became a colony of the British Empire. There were no graphs, we don't have any information, we don't have any data to show. But what we have is an anecdotal and documented evidence where provincial officers from different provinces have talked about wildfires or fires, forest fires, raging across the country, across the year in various parts and at various times. But despite all of that, we've also had a large amount of wildlife, a larger amount of forest at that point of time. But as we all know today, a lot of changes happened in terms of demography and even in the spatial spread of ecosystems across our country. While all of us are generally referring to these as wildfires or as forest fires, I would take the opportunity to introduce another term of ecosystem fires, because most fires that also take place in our country and abroad are not just in forested ecosystems which have trees, but also grasslands, which is a very important component of our ecosystems, and that should be taken into consideration as well. And through all this time, from 200 years ago to the present day, what is acknowledged is that we have had a huge amount of biomass that is kind of increased in our landscapes, especially the protected area landscapes, with the absence of fire in most places. And there is sufficient evidence of how landscapes were managed using fire, or even which happened, invariably anthropogenically introduced or instigated or incinerated, where people actually set fire to landscapes. Now, like Hisham said, it isn't our agenda to kind of try and pinpoint and say who has lit the fire, but how do we fight fire? And one of the best solutions that we have learned from traditional communities and elsewhere is of being able to fight fire with fire. And that comes up by saying how land is used. And in the present day, I've given you a kind of a backdrop of, say, about 200 years ago. That same paradigm can't be used in the present day and the present context, because we have a very significant difference in the way our ecosystems are structured, how our land is used, and also how we manage these landscapes, right? So traditional communities like graziers or livestock herders, they have always set fire to landscapes to ensure there's proper and good forage for their livestock and for their own communities as well. But beyond that, we've even met with foraging communities, or formerly foraging communities, forest-dwelling communities, and they themselves have also used fire to fight fire again, to prevent the instance of wildfire. The forest departments in various states also use fire to prevent larger conflagrations happening through the use of fire lines or even of set burn periods. And we have experience from various officers who are here as well, who will speak a little later on. And an important issue is to remember is not that we're not trying to look at to prevent fire, but how do we increase or improve our resilience to fire? And that's probably the most important aspect that we have learned over time, especially people who have been working on fire ecology. Because like he said, preventing fire is a knee-jerk reaction or a reactionary kind of process. Whereas if we are able to look at methods by which we can improve our resilience, that's human and ecological resilience, it is to use fire judiciously and where required. And another issue to remember is, it is very, sorry, I got it wrong. A very important aspect is remember that there is varying knowledge. You can't have a one-size-fits-all strategy across the country or even across the globe. Each space, each ecology requires its own specific mechanism or strategy of addressing forest fires or ecosystem fires. And in that, you also we have been made aware of what are referred to as controlled or cultural burns, where communities use fire as part of ritual processes, culturally induced processes of addressing both their own ecology, their livelihoods, as well as in managing ecosystems. Now, we have come into from the early days when the British colony was established, And when fire was seen as a bad word and the chief enemy of the state, as some authors have referred to it, because the entire purpose was looking at timber, the production and extraction of timber, where fire was seen as the chief enemy of the state. Whereas all kinds of local communities across our country, in various different states, different places, have used fire judiciously to manage those ecosystems, not just timber, but to manage and can renew grasslands, renew trees, and to renew ecosystems as a whole. So a key takeaway is that, like I was talking to Dr. Pablo in the morning, fire is a very good tool, but it can be a very easily misused tool as well. And we have to be very specific about the way we understand it and use it from ecosystem to ecosystem. And in this stage of drier and hotter climate, where we are moving into this era of climate change, our judicious use of fire, I think, is critically very, very important. So, like how we have a lot of technology in the present day, India is not anywhere behind. We're pretty advanced as far as a lot of technology goes. What we also have, but we haven't capitalized on, is to be able to use not just artificial intelligence, but common intelligence and human intelligence. And that we have a huge repository, which we had through traditional knowledge systems amongst our various different tribal and indigenous communities across our country. And that, unfortunately, knowledge has mostly waned in most places, given the issue of suppression and also of different other factors which have marginalized a lot of the communities. But despite all of that, there still is a semblance and knowledge that we can tap into. And that's where social ecology comes in, where we can address or try and understand ecologies through communities as well, not just through mainstream science. There is indigenous science perspectives or even taxonomies that people have for their own landscapes and how they use it. And I think that is where one of the components where we are coming and where I step in as well, of trying to understand how communities have been addressing these issues in the long run. And yes, and our entire purpose is to remember, we're not trying to prevent fire. We're trying to find resilient and more sustainable mechanisms by which we can address fire by potentially using fire as a tool as well also. And with that, I would like to invite Dr. Anita. She's the Director of Biodiversity in Keystone Foundation, to go on to the next session.
Thanks so much, Manish and Prahlad. I think they've set, and Hisham, because I think the context has been set very beautifully. And I'm here co-moderating the session with Manjusha. I'm not going to let her just sit on the sides there, so we're going to do this together. And as I don't know how much of a program all of you have, but we've designed this as a fireside chat. So there are about 5 thematic areas, or four thematic areas that we're going to be discussing. And I see that the room is full. So I'm also keen to see how we can get responses from the audience. And I'm very, we would really like to hear your questions and your feedback. So we hope there will be time for that. I will be calling up the speakers, and each of you has been, you have about 5 minutes. If you stay within 5 minutes or even below 5 minutes, there's a prize. But we can have more time for discussions and questions. So I'd encourage you, please take your 5 minutes. But also we'll keep time for this. Before we segue into the conversation, I just wanted to say that the word resilience and building a fire resilient system has been we've been using that word a lot. And I think most of us in the room might understand that this resilience is about bouncing back and coming back. And there's always a problem with the word coming back, because it's not just going back to something that was great before, but it's also going back to the future. So we're talking about resilience building that talks about what's the restoration which has the situation, the context of today, of the human populations today, about the land available for conservation. So we're talking about a forward-looking restoration, and that's what will build resilience. And in that light, I think the themes that we're going to be talking about are definitely the intersection of science, the governance, the finance, and of course the lived practices, a bit of which Manish already discussed. So with that, I'm going to open up the first fireside chat, which will be on global developments in wildfire science. I will invite Dr. Santiago Garcia Lore, who's the Director of Forest Partnerships with EDF, and Dr. Vinay Kumar Dadwal, who's the Lead Advisor Science of EDF, and he was formerly the Director in the Institute of Space Science and Technology and the National Remote Sensing Center. So Santiago, after you, and then you'll make your comments, and then I'll hand over to, you will just pass the mic on to Vinay for his comments, yeah? And you have 5 minutes. Do you want to take the podium? Sure. Also? Okay. Okay, whichever. Well, if you prefer speaking standing up or sitting down. I don't know. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Well, my name is Santiago Garcia, Director of Forest Partnership at EDF. Thank you so much, Keystone Foundation, EDF India, for the space today. Wildfire is an issue that goes beyond the forest in general. It's affecting economies, it's affecting other areas. It's very important subject matter that is in this table of discussion at different levels. At the international level, there is different initiatives that have started around wildfires. One of them is the Kananansky Charter that was led by the G7 group. Thank you. Looking for strengthening international cooperation for wildfire, and also is aiming to strengthening wildfire prevention in general. Because there is a huge difference between the efforts that we can implement in prevention rather than firefighting in general. There is other initiatives like the Fire Hub that started in 2023, and it's trying to coordinate efforts around wildfires at international level, UN level. FAO is leading this initiative in general. Last year as EDF also we have the opportunity to launch a Wildfire Action Accelerator pledge from the civil society. This effort coming from civil society. We had more than 40 organizations supporting the pledge, more than 40 countries that they enjoy or provide endorsement to the pledge. And we had more than 50 of those 40 organizations are indigenous organizations. Finally, Brazil, during the last COP30, they made the Brazil pledge, making a clear call also for wildfire issues, especially for tropical countries in the Amazon basin. And this is an important aspect. When we have the opportunity to discuss with different decision makers in tropical countries, the traditional model is more focused in the north, in the boreal forest in general. This is something very useful. They have the technology, they have the resources, but there is a huge barrier between the ecosystem characteristics on the north versus what is the situation in the tropics. Most of these 4 initiatives that I mentioned before, all of them has the same pillars. They make a clear call for strengthening international cooperation. They prioritize the participation of indigenous people or traditional knowledge. It's something that it must be complement the technology efforts. We can have good satellite imageries, remote sensing systems, but all this information must create an echo on the ground. And this is where traditional knowledge and local community action is very important in general. Finally, the need for mobilize more funds around wildfires, because it's not something that's mentioned earlier and other in the beginning of the session. This is something that goes beyond the forest, affecting the economy, and also there is a strong connection between, right now in the discussion about carbon emission, voluntary carbon markets, wildfires represent a risk to the NDC. It's something that could affect some carbon financial mechanisms and country systems. Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you for this unique opportunity to talk to such a varied and learned audience on forest fire. So I would start from my area, which actually to model you must have observations. And when you're talking of a nation and forest, satellites are the best way. initially a fire can be detected by its temperature, it can be detected by its smoke, and you can do post detection by the char, the burnt area. Now the whole issue is, the earlier satellite showed yes, this is possible, but the frequency or the time interval between one observation to next was very poor, 18 to 26 days. So we had satellites which could do every day. Now even when you do every day in a diurnal cycle, when does the fire take place also is important. And now you brought satellites to CubeSats and small satellites, so you can have many of them, and then you can put them in orbit so that you can almost either visit each part of the earth every hourly or 2 hourly, or you can go to geostationary and view 120 degrees of the earth continuously. But then after observation, what do? You can actually get what is called the radiative fire intensity. It means what type of emissions, how strong the fire is. That allows you to find out whether only small amount of biomass is burning or large amount. This is the difference between a ground fire, and actual wood burning. Now where it is happening is also very important. Now what happens in India is 99% of fires are human led. Now humans can go anywhere and put fire deliberately or accidentally, but then can we build an intelligence? Now putting the spatial data together is, you use geographic information system, we know the roads, we know the track pathways, we perhaps even know the camping ground, and as the agriculture expands and you have fire on the agriculture, it does cross over and come to the forest areas also. Then we want to know what type of forest is there where this transfer is happening. Is it open forest? Less likely. Or suppose you are in Uttarakhand, it's a pine forest and the last fire happened 3 years ago. It means you have enough needles and needle mass which will burn very rapidly. Now all this can be put into a data driven model to not only find out fire or have a early detection, but then predict the behavior and the impact and what you should be doing. So I think the opportunities are there to really build up the data for each fire, vegetation specific, context specific, and also what is being burnt, and then have the strategies. Even for resilience, there are many forest patches which have been invaded by lantana or commalina. When you have lantana, then it's always you have green leaves and all the gaps are filled with green leaf. The fire will be of a different type. And as was pointed out, for all grassland and savanna, this is a management technique. If you want to sustain livestock, you will have to have some management. So I think that this is an opportune time to do more scientifically and not look purely as suppression or purely look as detection or only as forecasting, but enter into this entire cycle of fire management and making the best out of resilience. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Santiago and Dr. Vinay, for sticking to time. I think I have an extremely easy job as a moderator. And from global systems and the science of fire, we now go to the practice of fire and the practice of communities on the ground. And for this thematic session, which is on community stewardship and on-ground practice, we have leads from Keystone Foundation, Dr. Pratim Roy and Dr. Anupriya Singh from Farmers for Forests in Maharashtra. So would you like to do the same as Vinay and Santiago, that one of you sits here and Pratim leads?
We can go back.
We can just add chairs here. We can add chairs. We can add chairs here.
No, not required. Please.
Okay.
Have your please.
Okay. All right.
You want to sit there? Yeah. So I've been asked to speak about how do you make the communities connect more and more to the official structure, the official system, because 32 years we have really worked with the community. And we have worked a lot with the forest department. And the forest department is actually the main government body which actually, you may say, has massive jurisdiction of forest fires in India, more than any other department. So we have 3 forest officers sitting here with a lot of experience, and it would be nice to hear from them during the question answer session. So I think what the department today, and we had a discussion with the PCCF of Tamil Nadu just day before yesterday, and we are signing an MOU with them. So what the department today officially accepts, despite the satellite imageries, despite all the technologies that they have, they accept that the first responders and the people who can give you the ground information as to what is happening is the local communities. And that is something which they feel that needs to be really structured, needs to be developed further, needs to be creatively used. And this is something has been done in a very informal, ad hoc way today, and it is left to the last mile people in those areas, in those tracts, where they know that the fire is prone in this area, and they'll be able to say there is a sheetrock there, the fire will not move beyond that point there, there's a water body there, the fire will turn here, the wind direction changes during this season, and those kind of local knowledge, those kind of indigenous information, somehow in India, for any sectors that we take, is still at a very, very informal way of working. I don't mind the informality, but we are not being able to tap in a very structured way the knowledge that they have. How do you bring that into a decision-making system? For example, in the Forest Fire Center in Chennai, when you go there, all the equipment that is displayed there, they themselves admit, the forest department themselves admit, none of these equipments are used, sir, because it's too heavy. The terrain is too difficult. Forest fire occurs in terrain which are extremely difficult for anybody to reach there. You cannot have those big spades and all those things that they have. You can't have that. So nobody has been able to really look at what do you need at that point of time. What kind of knowledge, what kind of equipment, what kind of drone support, what kind of AI, what kind of local language, what kind of local knowledge. And forest fires, today we are discussing openly, and that's why Prahlad said it very quickly, very nicely in the beginning. Forest fires is a subject which is a taboo in India. Dr. Pabla's book is the first kind of a breakthrough, and he's done completely a courageous job to write a book, and everybody refers to that book. But nobody talks about forest fires, but forest fires is a huge, huge issue. So I think it's time for local indigenous communities to be actually rewarded, to be able to look at an incentive, to have a whole network of forest watchers, forest fires, and really in public recognize the kind of knowledge and the kind of wisdom that they have. How do they connect an agriculture practice? How do they connect a non-timber forest produce gathering practice? How do they connect a village life to forest fires? And this equation that they have, where they really help the department, where they really help prevention of forest fire, and they have knowledge that this is the season of forest fire. For example, today, we've had a very severe winter in the mountains. Yeah, we have a severe winter in the mountains. Everybody knows that this time the forest fire is going to be very huge. This kind of knowledge, and what do we do with a cold winter leading to a massive kind of forest fire, these are the gaps that need to be filled, and we have to use indigenous knowledge and local wisdom for that. Thank you, Anita. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you, Anita ma'am, and thank you everyone for giving me this opportunity to share the work which we are doing at Farmers for Forest in the district of Gadchiroli in Maharashtra. So I'll be talking more about our groundwork, which we are doing from past few months in the region. And I totally agree what Pritam sir has already highlighted, the integration of the community and the knowledge what they have. So during our initial laying the groundwork for our project, so we are trying to prevent these forest fires in the Gadchiroli district, and which rightly has been discussed in the context setting as well, that Maharashtra is very prone to fires, especially in the central India region adjoining Chhattisgarh, MP as well. So mostly these fires are happening because people are trying to do the NTFP harvest, the non-timber forest produce harvest. And in that region, when we went there and saw, so mostly it is happening because people are trying to harvest the mahua flowers and tendu patta harvest. So people, usually they just light up these fires just to clear the forest floor and to make it more accessible to the entire family member so that they can easily just get inside the forest, do the collection and come out. So while interacting with them, we also got a sense that they are well aware of the fact that over the period of time, in like a span of years time, they did observe that the native tree diversity is decreasing, and also the increase of the climbers and lianas species, which are kind of creating a competition wherein the regeneration of the forest is actually not happening. So what actually is happening on the ground is that they are continuously extracting these products, but there is no regeneration happening because of the repetitive fire incidents which are happening like during the months of harvest. So what we are trying to do is asking them to participate with us in our project, and we are trying to incentivize them and educate them to do an alternate practice of harvesting these products. So for example, if we are encouraging them to, if for harvesting the mahua flowers, they can just clear the area under the tree, whatever tree they have, and in spite of starting out a fire. And for the tendu harvest, we are encouraging them to do the pruning work. And also there are certain myths around associated with the fire. People, they kind of believe that fire would eventually yield a good quality of leaf as well. So a lot of awareness work needs to be done with the community members. And they do agree that fire is not a good practice, but I think mostly because the other alternatives are more labor intensive, they are just trying to avoid that. But we are trying to incentivize them with all the labor work, and interestingly we have received an overwhelming response from the community. And also, like awareness and community participation is one aspect. The other aspect which we are trying to do is we will try to record all of this ecological data associated with soil. So visible is vegetation, what we can see, and also the other aspect which is really important is the soil. So what we are trying to design our monitoring framework in a way that over a period of span of few years, we will monitor the soil health and also the water percolation rate as well. Because when the fires are continuously lit inside the forest, it also affects not just the vegetation which is visible, but also the invisible aspects of forest as well. So we are really interested to look at the water percolation rate, infiltration rate, and the water runoff rate, which kind of wipes away the essential topsoil nutrients and everything else. So that is what we are trying to do. And I really think the strategy here for us is mostly not like a fire suppression, post-fire action, but more like a fire preventive action. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Anupriya and Pratim. Thank you so much. Yeah, and we've heard now from the community, I think both sides of the community perspectives, the impacts of fires as well as how important fire as a tool to manage, forest. And we have heard the global perspectives. I also wanted to highlight that we have the first UN resolution on wildfire, which was adopted in December 2025, which was led by India. So that really means this is an opportune time for India, and India does want to lead this whole, forest fire resilience building. So that's where we are looking forward to. And we've as well heard from the science part of it. Now we will go towards another very important pillar of, not just wildfire or forest fire in India's context, but also forest in general. I think two most important pillars of forest are communities and states or governance, how states are managing it, how states are integrating it, and how states are responding to it. So we have, as Hisham announced, the head of forest PCCF Maharashtra in the room, Sri M. Srinivasa Rao. I'm going to invite Mr. Rao, please come to the stage and share with us how Maharashtra, what are Maharashtra's systems, how Maharashtra is responding. Also, what are the different practices that you have and the challenges, you are facing to build these kind of wildfire resilience that we are thinking of. What we do as an organization, and I'm sure everyone in this room are looking forward to, is how to collaborate more with the state forest so that we can do all of it together. So would love to hear from you. And sir has a deck, which is already.
Thank you. Thank you. And I thank the organizers for inviting me here. It is a great opportunity. But I think more foresters should have been here, because we are talking of wildfires, but less forest officers. Sir will agree with that. And next slide. Yeah, before that, I'll introduce myself. I am Srinivas Rao, PCCF and Head of Forest Force, Maharashtra Forest Department. And I'm in the state for last 30 years. I worked in various departments. Because why I'm telling is there's many things which you're talking about. I worked in tribal development department because you're talking about communities. I've also worked in disaster management. And I've also worked in social forest, that is outside forest areas. So the three perspectives I've seen. And so with that small introduction, the total area under forest is 307 lakh hectares. Is the geographical area, out of which 20% of the forest area is with the forest department. We have 19 circles, forest circles. Then the smallest unit, all of you know that, 6,617 beats in Maharashtra state. If you see the status of forest fire in last 3 years, it has increased. And if you see from 23 to 25, the total number of alerts received, it has increased from 24,157 to 30,451. This also includes the fire within the forest and outside the forest also. And if you see the fire alerts for this season 2026, there's an increase in forest fires, that is almost 71% increase. And this is the fire incidences in the state of Maharashtra. And you can see the eastern part, we have the almost 70% of our forest is in eastern part, that is Gadchiroli district. And Gadchiroli district has almost 80% of forest of the total geographical area of the district. And as one of the speaker was mentioning, so here we have the highest incidence of forest fire. And we also have in Melghat. This is a Melghat, where again the community, you have the tribal region. All this, sorry. So the regions, all these are tribal subplan regions, TSP areas. So we have 14 districts, because I worked in tribal department. I was in a place called Bhamragad here. So all this, wherever we have this forested regions, we have Gadchiroli, then northern Nagpur, then Melghat, then the Satpuras, then the western Ghats. This is the western Ghat regions. And again, dominated by tribal subplan areas. So before that, I think many, even the foresters in Maharashtra forgot. We had a modern forest system in Maharashtra, funded by FAO long back in 1984. And it was implemented in two the places in country. One was in Chandrapur and Haldwani of Uttar Pradesh. In fact, we had the most modern firefighting equipments, including the helicopter. There were helicopters at both the places. And even our own department, many of our officers have forgotten that we had such system in our state. So I just want to take back what was the response and what was implemented. So whatever we are talking, it was also thought those days in 1984, improved planning and reporting, then training and community participation, appropriate equipment for firefighting, and then develop practices for adoption in other states. So imagine in 84 and again in 2026, again we are talking the same thing. And Chandrapur, the project area covered was 1,62,600 hectares, basically covered with natural teak forests and teak plantations, which also included the protected area at Tadoba National Park. And the main reason for fire causes was, tendu leaf collection, then burning for grasses, the mahua flower collection. And what was the impact observed? The burnt teak areas, the coppice regeneration increased. Then there was also damage to regeneration. And the timber, there was a loss in timber because of burning, which lowered the price. And what were the control measures during that project period? Prevention, control, fuel breaks, then tractor fire lines, like what fire lines we have, we do it manually. Prescribed burning awareness, then detection, appointing seasonal village labor and rapid reporting. Then using some tools, to suppress the fires, like hand tool crews, local made equipments, mobile water tankers, fast initial attacks. And I remember some of those equipments were recently, written off because they were very old and nobody knew for what they were purchased also. I also worked in corporation. When the file came to me, I was wondering that why this equipment is being written off. Then it was told that it is of no use now. So what was the result of this project? We could reduce the fire size area from 190 hectares to 18 hectares. And the area burnt was reduced from 15% to 1.86%. So again, the same conclusion, what we are discussing, I suppose, integrated prevention, detection, then fire damage reducing to manageable levels. So what are we doing now? We have submitted a project to NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, covering 12 fire-prone districts. I also worked in disaster management. I was in disaster management in the state as a director of disaster management. And in those days, whenever we used to talk to my secretary, include fire as a disaster, he never agreed. He told it is a man-made event. It is not a natural disaster. We had 7 disasters which were natural, like earthquake, landslides, then flooding and all those things. But those days, very difficult to convince. But I think now the NDMA has taken as fire as one of the disasters. So we have submitted, so imagine after 2011, it took 15 years to understand that fire is a disaster. So we have covering 12 districts in Maharashtra. These are the districts. And then we have submitted some project, worth 53 crores covering these aspects. Same, whatever we were doing long back. I'll not go into that details. Then what we are doing in Maharashtra. In Pench National Park, we are installed a PTZ camera for early detection of cameras, which is real-time alerts in 3 minutes. And then there's a nighttime detection, which can distinguish between smoke and clouds. And we also have, like one of the speakers was talking about community involvement. So this, especially in Melghat Tiger Reserve, we have started this scheme called Zero Fire Villages. So we pay 1 lakh rupees from the foundation money, that is in core areas, and in buffer areas we pay 50,000 rupees. So that has really helped. There's no fire in those villages. And the burnt area was reduced from 163 hectare within a forest area of 318 square kilometer. Then recently in Chandrapur, we have started a control room where fire alert locations, they are transmitted to the local staff because there are no communication facilities there. And through this control room, it is also used for wildlife rescue operations and etc. Then in Mahua collection areas, because Mahua is a very important forest product for the livelihood of the locals. So we are using nets, but it's in a small scale. So which has reduced the intention of fires. So what are the expected outcome from these activities in Maharashtra? The first thing is we want to involve the local communities. Then also response time for detection and suppression of forest fires. Then decrease in the extent of forest areas, improved preparedness. And we also have a fire science college in Nagpur. I don't know how many of you know this. This is the only fire science college in India under the Home Ministry. They offer BS fire science. So I have had a discussion with the director of Fire Science College. We also want to partner with them. And also I request whoever wants to partner with Maharashtra Forest Department, they are welcome. Thank you.
The first comment you had is we should have more foresters in the room, and we do have some ex-foresters in the room, and we did try to get Tamil Nadu Forest Department here, but Tamil Nadu has Tamil Nadu Climate Summit going on till last night. The reason we do not have them, but we do have one of the best practice states in the room, so which is great, and thank you so much for sharing. I am going to move towards the last fireside chat we have. We have Neha here, Neha Kumar from Head of South Asia Climate Bond Initiative. Neha, if I may request you to please come on the stage. And so Climate Bond Initiative has done a fantastic finance work on forest. I often think and get the impression that finance is really that missing piece of the puzzle, especially in terms of forest. So it would be great, Neha, to hear from you what were those financial instruments that you have found out in your work, that are going to work towards forest financing as well, but more importantly, wildfire. Whether wildfire is getting enough attention from climate financing instruments, and which other instruments that you see that sits through across adaptation, mitigation, because wildfire does sit across, at the intersection of resilience. Over to you, Neha.
Thank you, Manjusha. And I think that I don't know whether you created the fireside chat with intention in your mind. That's the first thing. And this is perhaps the only conversation that has triggered a song in my head, which I can't get rid of. It is Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire, but We Tried to Fight It." So that's the another one. And then the third one is like, are we fighting a guerrilla war here? Trying to douse the fire and ending up putting more fuel to the fire with the wrong kind of, not wrong, but somehow misunderstood use of, or not very smart use of finance, okay? Now, since everybody was talking about it, and Hisham, thank you for saying that, there is, what I got from all of what you have spoken, including Mr. Srinivas, is that it is prevention to resilience, okay? What you also said, somebody, that, we are not talking about fire prevention, but I would like to say it differently, that actually prevention has the best returns on investment. If you can prevent something, and there are figures about it as well, but just look at what kind of money do we put to what kind of use. So wildlife fire management has a whole lot of linked things. Sometimes it could be a secondary effect to watershed management, right? So we need to really see what kind of finance will go to what kind of activity. Now, going for wildfire management, you know what the union budget says? This year's, has anybody looked at the figure? What our government outlay is? It has increased the budget by 30% to amount to 50 crore increase, 50 crore rupees. Okay. The total budget on forest fire management departments is in the region of 3,000 crores, in which there is a difference between how it will be managed between state and center. Okay? Now, the government finance is important when it comes to recovery, because no private finance will directly look at that kind of thing where you really need instantly that there has been a forest fire, people need to be saved, public finance has to just go in, right? How do we move this use of finance from only recovery to disaster risk reduction, which is that of fire, to resilience building so that the fire vulnerability against fire is reduced? Here, I think finance also has a solution. I will give you a couple of examples. First one is just to understand where does finance move and how, so you have to reduce the risk. You have to create as less friction for finance to move to be able to meet the end goal. If an intervention benefits, if the intervention benefits are substantial, they are quantifiable, and they can accrue over a long period of time, which means that they make sense, which means it makes sense to act sooner for the returns that you are getting. But there is a dichotomy between cash flows and value generation. Correct? By which I mean that we know that planting more forest will help you, I'm just giving you an example, reduce floods. Okay? But no insurance company directly funds planting of trees. So there are interventions that you're trying to introduce which will reduce the likelihood of fire, but we do not have a direct funding in the name of reduction of wildfire for that. So, which means that there is a dichotomy between value and cash flows. What we generate cash flows may come a bit later in the game, which means it can it be a completely, entirely commercial proposition? By which I mean that can you borrow money from the market and put it into all of the aspects that will reduce the likelihood of fire in the future, and can say, and keep your investors happy, keep the social returns coming, keep financial returns happening. So this doesn't happen very, very easily. But there are cases in which if you understand which kind of money can be put to what kind of use, then you can create, you can structure a financial instrument on the back of which you can actually have private capital providers invest in your end goal. And I will give you an example. It happened in USA. If there are people in the room who know more about it, I'd love to hear. But what I have read about it is that this is called the first forest resilience bond. Okay, this is in Yuba in the USA. They collected different beneficiaries, and I'm just going to end this with this example. I know I'm running short on time. Basically, let me just say what happened here. I wrote this down so that it can be very clearly understood. There were 4 actors. There was a Blue Forest Conservation, there was WRI, there was USDA Forest Service, and there was National Forest Foundation. So in the Tahoe Forest, they raised $4 million from private investors and foundations, and they enabled treatments and restoration services. And the costs were, whatever the benefits were accrued, which was on the avoided losses, that were used to give back to the investors. And they have now, in the last year, this has become the first tribally led forest resilience bond. So solutions are possible, including communities, beneficiaries, investors, governments, everything. It takes a little bit of work, but it is possible. There are other instruments like cat bonds. I do not know how many of you know about it. Catastrophe bonds, which is basically an insurance product. That, premiums get triggered when there is a large incident. So that is also, there is insurance risk linked instruments, and they're direct going to the market, bringing the money in, because mind you, even though you have a very limited government budget, but even that will not be enough. Our budgets and our fiscal space is shrinking. We will need to think of interesting instruments which actually get more private money coming in. But if we can understand where that money has to be used, the structures are possible, capital is possible. I will end my remarks here.
Thank you so much, Neha. And please be on the stage. Quickly, we do have Amanda Leyland, our Executive Director, EDF. Amanda, you want to add anything to the US initiative that Neha had just shared with us? Santiago, we will read and learn more about it. I will also invite Hisham on the stage. This is the last section where we take your questions. I think, Neha, we would love to learn more about more instruments on forest finance, and as well as more collaborative opportunities with state like Maharashtra, which has been thinking about it from 1984. But we have all our panelists and some forest experts in the room as well. So we are open to questions. Please raise your hands. Can we get some microphones at the back?
Hello, my name is Vishal Sanghvi. I am a deep tech innovator and experienced about innovation last 30 years. As we see about last year experience in California, how the fire is coming to the civilian area actually, So there is a big, something India, as I have proposed to US, just write email that time, okay, we can develop the anti-fire missile actually, which is go to the fire have a special nanotechnology based chemical, and which helicopter cannot do actually, this can be do actually. And other things, there is a possible about that, because I am a part of innovation, it's possible like low power consumptions fire detection camera, because some of the inner area of the forest actually, where electricity is not there, because once the fire generated, that time we have to finish that fire actually, not. So those, there is electricity not there, but how we have the technology, like if we have some special work, out of the box innovation created actually, so we can develop the solution immediately. It's not take much of time actually, where turbine solar, this fire detection camera can be placed as a very low cost camera in different part of the remote forest area. So I want to know how the this community can ready to take the out of the box solution to be created, which something implemented in India, but again usually in the US also.
Thank you, Vishal. I think that's more of a question to the state than to the communities, how to implement. So I would request...
it's a software companies get a customized software order. So now something you develop customized solutions, how the community can take it.
Yeah.
No, definitely, I think your idea is very good. And please do come and we can join hands together.
Thank you. And we have another question at the back.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Siddharth. I'm from WRI India. So our organization had developed a restoration opportunities atlas, which showed that the total restoration potential for India is more than 100 million hectares. But 87 million hectares of that land is actually as a part of mosaic restoration, trees outside forest areas. We saw that the data in we largely work in the central Indian landscape, covering Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra and Chhattisgarh. We saw that the data shows that the fires are increasing. So is that data talking about forest fires? Because we don't have any data for trees outside forest areas where the potential for restoration is very high. And my second question was to sir, that Maharashtra is now coming up with this 300 crore ambitious plantation target program. So can forest fires be integrated as one of the major risks in this initiative as well? Thank you.
I think we have not thought of that in our program. But if you can help us in that, then definitely we'll add to that.
Thank you, Siddharth. And to your first question, anyone? Yes, Vinay. Can we have a mic there with Vinay?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. First, I would like to state that across the year, when you have the detected fires, there has been switch of the satellite. So you had thermal data of 1 kilometer, then you start using the satellite data with 375 meter resolution. Immediately the number of detected fires, these are not fires, these are detected fires. Actual fire number can be very large. So please bear that in mind, this time series is not uniform. The second important point is trees outside forests. You may have seen a paper put out where the sub-meter data has been used to map all tree canopies above 30 meters square, 2000, I think 12 and 2019, and we actually have a map of where these trees tough are there. Also bear in mind the tough other than the one which are on the roadside, canal, band, etc., which are like public institutional land, others are all on private land. So you can't, depending upon the tenure, you just can't go in and start saying that you do that. TOF are used in homestead for multiple applications. TOF are used as block plantations for various, so there is a huge answer. So one has to bring it that, and it is not that the information is not available, it is available.
Thank you, Vinay. Yes, we have a question at the back. And before we go there, I wanted to connect, because Siddharth did talk about restoration, and India has a very ambitious target for land restoration. I wanted to come to Neha, whether, there are climate, especially carbon finance instruments that you could talk a little bit about to connect to the restoration bit. I think that's really important even for after fire.
So yeah, see, the thing is that for carbon credits, you need to have that restoration angle extremely important, because only when the soil and the carbon gets generated and sequestered in the soil can you claim that you have generated credits. That's one thing, that whether that area around can generate credits, and that those credits can be linked to some kind of innovative financial solution, in which, see, finance, one is you get a grant. Anything other than grant is borrowed, correct? Which means that you have to return. So do the communities or the people involved have the capacity to return? That is the main question. So those carbon credits can be used as revenue flows to be able to service what you have, service the money that you have borrowed. Limited use, but important in this case. So I will say that, but just what I'm trying to say is that in order to come to a situation when you can borrow and repay, in fact, why I like those solutions is because then you actually start creating a business model. Then you start knowing, what the communities can do, what the beneficiaries can do. And that is the only way to sustain a long-term kind of action on not only preventing future prevention, but also building resilience of different communities, different institutions. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, Neha. We had a question in the back.
Hi. As a designer, I had two questions, mainly on the resilience and the prevention side of the equation, which is where the interventions ideally should come, obviously. So my question was like two approaches. One is the communication aspect, which is where you raise the awareness. We all talk about raising community awareness, but the how is missing, which is what designers typically deal with, how. So where is the limitation there in the communication of this issue? And the second question is, why not just leverage the existing meteorological eye in the sky approach, where you every day, for example, that's what happens in many Nordic countries. There is a regular daily index of because they're all like very highly vulnerable to forest fires, right? So there is a daily index, and when the index is very high, they double down on the efforts on that day to prevent any possibility of anyone lighting any fire. So that's like the precision of daily indexing the meteorological data kind of thing. So is this existing or not? Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I missed your name. If you can.
Ranjit.
Ranjit. Hi. Thank you, Ranjit. On the communication bit, I'm going to request Hisham. You look lost. How do we better
He's
communicate?
thinking of what song will he come up with.
You take your time on the second
Mark
IMD
my
Sky
words on the
bit.
song bit. I have something up my sleeve, but not for this one.
IMD, okay, I'll take the IMD Sky question. Vinay, do you think you can add to it?
Yes, I think your basic perception is correct. Now the issue is for the fire to actually take root and spread, two derivative products are needed: fuel load and the moisture content of the fuel load. And they need to be done at such a spatial resolution where the actual ignition takes place. It means it has to be lower than 30 by 30 meter or maybe even 10 by 10 meter. The second important point is meteorology comes in terms of humidity and wind speed. We know low humidity or vapor pressure deficit and high surface winds, they increase the problem. And then the problem is you have very few meteorological observation. You have to use numerical weather prediction. The numerical weather prediction has multiple layers for wind direction and speed. The lower you are to the ground, the more errors they are. And the best resolution what we have is the Bharat weather prediction, which is a 6 kilometer grid. So there is obviously a question of scale, then there is a question of the time, but as has been pointed out, and local orography. During the day, if you are really in a mountainous area, the wind directions, etc., are less determined by the gross number, more by the local orography. So you have to bring in a high resolution orographic model for wind flows. But heat map resolution has to that.
So I've rebooted and woken up, and I'm now in a position to answer your question. I have a very odd answer on the comms part of it, which is this, and I'm coming back to the points that both of you made about government priority. Finally, this thing is going to need a huge amount of money, and I'm wondering, what is it that we're doing with the economic survey and the budget to make the economic case about why you should be investing in wildfires and wildfire management and not keeping it as a small line item within NDMA? And the second is, at the end of every year, imagine if all of us went back to the government and said, hey, you put in this much money, this is what we were able to save for you. But make that, because that is what everyone else is doing. And some of them have done a far better job. For example, folks working on girl education have been or early childhood have been persistently going to the government saying, every rupee that you put in, this is what you will get. I'm not suggesting that girl education, early childhood have been fixed, but government priority has progressively increased. So it is a very policy wonky kind of approach, but we need mentions of wildfire management in next year's economic survey and the one after that, and a number to land with the government that says, I'll give you an example from something completely different. Swachh Bharat, why was it launched? Sure, do we want clean streets? Do we want to get rid of open defecation? Of course we do all of that. But a number landed with the government saying that there was 350 rupees of preventable health costs every month for every Indian. When that number lands, then it makes it a lot easier for people to understand. Otherwise, we're talking in, esoteric terms.
I really do feel like. So one of the things is that the budget figure that I just told you, by the way, a substantial amount of that fund is not spent. So we do not even know what to spend on. Okay. Now the second thing is that the states have to come together. Not everything can be seen by people sitting in Delhi. So if there is risk to your economy coming from, the forest fires, then we have to do, there is technology, there is analysis, we have to join the dots. Okay, and then forest fires, and I'm coming back to you, WRI, what you were saying. So while the initiatives can be spearheaded by a single state, but they don't know borders, right? You can't control forest fire that iske baad yahan se mat hona. ठीक है? So regional approaches will need to be thought through. And there also, by the way, if you want to attract different sources of money, you can aggregate, you can give a solution where other people who can invest their money will get attracted. Because if it's too small, then also that things doesn't happen. There is definitely a paradox of scale that one can think about, but too small will not get you anywhere. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Neha. Santiago, I'll come to you in a bit. We do have some forest experts in the room. We wanted to take, their comments also very briefly. You can, if you can, Anita.
Yeah, sure. So I'd like to invite Dr. H.S. Pavla and Dr. Pushpender Rana to give some comments from their landscapes, and they really work.
Do I stand up?
As you wish.
First of all, I'm sorry to say, by and large, I think we are barking up the wrong tree. If I'm not mistaken, maybe I lost concentration sometimes. My understanding is that we are talking about is fire prevention and suppression. These are two completely impossible tasks, number one. Number two, not really desirable. We all know all ecosystems on Earth have been shaped by historical fires, and fires are going to shape up the future, the ecosystems of the future. So there's no running away from fires. And if you prevent a fire today, tomorrow's fire will be more devastating. So the strategy has to be to understand how to make use of fires and how to prevent damage from fires. For that, we have to understand which fires are good, which fires are bad. And please take it from me, most species on Earth have already experienced fire. They have survived millions and millions of years of fires, and they have adapted and built up whatever you call resilience or whatever. And without fire, there'd be no tigers, there'd be no elephants, there'd be no teak, no sal, nothing. So let's go deeper than what we're doing today. I'm very happy to see this conversation going on today. And I have tried to start these conversations many times in my own department, outside, but I think this is wonderful to see people talking about fires today. Fires do not destroy all life. There will be no life without fire. Life sustains on two fundamental processes. One fundamental process is decomposition of existing life and previous life. Without decomposition, there will be no life in the future. And there are two kinds of decomposition, biological and fire. If biological decomposition doesn't work fast enough, fire will have to come in and create space for life and release materials for building future lives. So because we don't have time, maybe you have to drag me away if you want me to stop. We have to do much more than just prevent and suppress fires. Much more needs to be done. A lot of work is being done outside India, and all those principles apply here, but that science does not exactly fit us. We have to create our own fire science. We have to understand how Indian fires will behave and how Indian species, Indian biota, not only living things, even inorganic things, our soil, our stones, our rocks behave in the presence of fire, and how our water systems are modulated by fire, how it changes runoff, how it changes percolation, how it changes stream flows, peak flows, even water quality, even aquatic life. So much more needs to be known before we actually pass a judgment on fires. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pavla. Before we go to Mr. Rana, very quickly, I think we completely agree with you. We did start with resilience and not really prevention and not only suppression, because we want to integrate all those pieces. And yes, it is very, closely to where exactly is the fire and which communities, how they're doing, what is the land type and all of it. But I'm very happy that all these different sides of the conversation is actually coming up, which is really making it so organic. Over to you.
So my experience comes from Himalayan states and from restoration. So like one thing I missed in this conversation is the link between, it's a complicated, complex system that I see. Because the policy interventions that we do, like for example, I give example from the subalpine and alpine pastures, because there is this WRI guy was telling that there is a lot of potential of restoration, but like this target-driven approaches, sometimes they create those kind of conditions, because it's all interconnected system, right? For example, in subalpine and alpine pastures, because of this huge pressure on us to plant trees, we have found these grasslands which are there for so many centuries or whatever from long time back. And now we are covering and enclosing those grasslands and planting trees. They're not going to survive because that is meant for grasslands. And what I've seen, like traveling on those pastures, that now the woody vegetation is coming up. We are changing the fundamental conditions that promote grass instead of trees, but now we are planting trees. There's human interventions. And that is creating problems for increasing the intensity of fire. So, and earlier fire was good in that particular nearby grassland, but now because we are converting that into a woody patches, so that is now harming the local biodiversity. One critical link that I've missed here in this talk is the link between wildlife also, because wildlife is also a very critical component. They also need grasslands for their survival, and it's all interconnected trophic levels and all web of food, food web and all. So all I'm saying is, like, whatever we say and do here, it has multiple unintended consequences, and we have to be very particular what we are trying to do. And that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we are, okay, we have time. But Mr. Rana, because, I think it's really was the missing link here, the grassland part of it. So thank you so much for bringing that up, and the Uttarakhand, fire incidents as well. On your last bit, the wildlife, conflict actually increasing for fire. If I can have Santiago to talk a little bit, very briefly, Santiago, because he does work, a lot of his work is also around that.
Well, something that we are missing in this discussion is integrate forest management in general. And this is the situation of wildfire is exactly as you mentioned, sir. It's part of the ecosystem, and some ecosystem with more or less frequency, but it's an essential part of the life in general. Wildfire events change how the matrix of the ecosystem works in general, change the condition for local people, but also change the condition for wildlife. There is one change that after a wildfire episode, events of human-wildlife conflicts can change because change the way that wildlife use the landscape in general, or they move through the matrix. But also it's important to mention about the importance of cross-coordination as another natural challenge that we have to face. It's necessary work at different levels. That means we have the national government, they have a specific role. We have the international cooperation that is making huge efforts to bring more funds to make improvements in technology, but also we need to work at local level. One example of integrated forest management is the program Amazonia Sin Fuego that was implemented in the Andean region in Ecuador, Peru, and Brazil for more than 15 years. And this program looking for what are prescribed fires as one tool for manage wildfires in general, also work at local level, looking how they can improve forest governance at local level in order to create opportunities to release biomass in some areas and make sustainable forest management at the same time. Use traditional knowledge for engage local communities as a kind of patrols, as a kind of firefighters where the fire events occurs. But the idea of wildfire events has an holistic approach in general that also include cultural values and how people connect with the local fauna during or after these events. So the key is not only avoid wildfires events occur. The key is improve the cross-coordination because the impact of wildfires events has a positive and negative, and those negatives go more beyond the economic cost. non-economic cost is also so high for local communities.
Thank you, Santiago. I think that was very, very important a point. We'll quickly take that as a last question. Sure, sure. Please, can we have a microphone?
Hi, I'm Shadlin from WRI India, and I just wanted to respond to the. No, I just wanted to say. Absolutely. I just wanted to clarify that the restoration atlas that we have, where we're mapping tree-based restoration, the possibility, it does exclude grasslands, it does exclude water bodies, it does exclude ecosystems that need to be preserved the way they are supposed to be preserved. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that, and it's a great tool. If anybody would like to have access, it's available freely on our website, and you can reach out to us as well. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank
that's
you.
all.
I think that's a very important contribution. I
Thank
am also going to reach out to you. I'll come to Rao sir for his last comments, and then we will close with Hisham's closing remarks.
I don't have any comments, but I think it's high time that we all come together. Because even being in department for last 30 years, as sir said, we never discuss on these issues. Never only within our circles or within divisions. We keep discussing, and when I came, I told sir also, we need to move out of forest. We don't know what is happening outside forest department. So a lot of things are happening, but like from ma'am, I learned that we have this forest resilience bond. So we are also thinking in this direction. We have Forest Development Corporation of Maharashtra. We're trying to float some bonds and IPOs. We're just thinking, because earlier it was not a thinking in department, about raising funds and all those things. So Maharashtra is trying to take a lead in this. So any of you can join with us. Our headquarters is in Nagpur, and I'll share the email ID and my phone number. Thank you.
Yeah, just one thing, and thank you for bringing that point up, but I actually quite agree with you that ecosystems and life has been sustained by fire, right? That is not what we were trying to say. I think it is pretty much the end point that you, in the end that you suggested. It is control of the damage, and by when you preventing the magnitude of damage, and in doing so increasing the resilience of the system and communities. That is what is inherent in terms of even bringing these financial structures together, because we'll have to measure against some outcomes and then the money flows. So that is what I just wanted to say. And there has to be a conjunction of science, policy, and finance. I think the time has come, and this room tells you that.
Sure. So in terms of closing, I'm looking at it as 7 things. Priority, prediction, technology, community, finance. Sorry, make that 6 things. And the 6th one is strategic blunders, which I'll come to at the end. In terms of priority, I think, first of all, just have a look at this. This is Mumbai Climate Week. There are 60 panels happening. This is the only one on wildfire. And then tells you something, but it also tells you that you have a full room. So we're making a start today, but this shouldn't be the end. So please do keep at it. I will just repeat the point about making the case to the economic survey, to the budget, about why you should invest in it, what is the economic return for you. We need to make the case not just at the national level, but individual states. So Mitra should know why wildfire management is important, and TNGCC should as well. In terms of how do you make systems more predictive, I think what we've heard is everybody has access to large numbers of various kinds of data sets. I would venture a guess that most forest departments don't have the time or the skill or the people to be able to do the analytics around it. And so supporting them with modeling work that can help make the system, help predict would be helpful. I think we should also look at less ambitious but equally impactful process improvements that document that post-fire report. Let's be looking at post-fire reports and saying, what are we learning from it, and what can we do, what additional, material do we need in a post-fire report, not to make it a 500-page burden on the forest officers, but are we missing things there? On the technology upgrade, there's a challenge where we need to be working with the FSI or other decision makers in the government, and they're not always good at it in terms of how do I know what is the new technology that is out there? Because right now the only people talking to them are vendors. You know, you want to make a sale out there, but they need somebody who can be an honest broker and saying, this is what is good about this technology, this is what you should, this is maybe what's not so good, this is what is fit for purpose for you. On the community side, there's a really tough challenge, which is how do we build a sophisticated way of translating community insight in a way that the government will take us seriously? In every wildfire or forest engagement, you will hear that there needs to be a community angle. It's almost always the government trying to sell to the community a particular way, you know, how do we do wildfire response? We need your help, etc. And of course that is important, but this is even more complicated, you know, distilling what those insights are. The last piece that I wanted to talk about is the strategic blunders piece, and I think we missed a chance for some really obvious zingers. I heard 2 of them today. Fireside chat. Why didn't we make a joke about it earlier? We didn't, you know, don't bark up the wrong tree is another one that I heard. So I'm going to try and make amends in a very ambitious way. 1 second, hang on. We won't miss these chances going forward. Thank you very much, everyone.